Hey, welcome back everyone. It is time for another red hot covered call video. Hey, look, I'm back from my little trip to New Orleans, and let me tell you, I am absolutely energized, fired up, and motivated to get back into the stock market. Looks like a lot of things in the news are going our favor, and I'll tell you what, at the end of the day, if the Federal Reserve is able to back off on those interest rates, we're going to see some higher markets. That's just my opinion, but I'm feeling it, and I'm going to buy stocks and write those out of the money covered calls, pocketing that 3 to 4 to 5% premium a month we always talk about. And we're going to play those weekly covered calls for that quick cherry picking time decay cash. Look, this is what we do here. I sell premium, I have success, and I talk about it. And I'll tell you what, we are a channel of like-minded people. So many people give me great comments about the success you're having writing covered calls and selling cash secure puts. It jacks me up to do my next trade, get behind the mic, show you the trade, we talk about it, and maybe you learn something. Maybe it motivates you to get off the couch, get in the game so you can have the kind of success we are. Look, I don't promise you nothing. I make no predictions, and hell, I make no recommendations. I tell you what I'm doing, and if it half-ass interests you and it motivates you to do it, hey, that's what we're here for. That's why I pay it forward, because that's what my mentor Jerry did for me. Jerry showed me that you can have success in the stock market if you get your financial education and actually do the strategy. He told me, we were talking for 6 months about the covered call strategy, and I'll tell you, I asked him every possible question, and he would sit there patiently answering every question. And then finally he said, John, you have to experience it. You have to do that first safe trade, and once you experience it, you own it. And that's exactly what happened. My very first trade absolutely got me in the game. And man, I was focused, and I'll tell you what, I owned it, and I owned that success as well. I love that trade. If you remember, that was PSX. I had gotten about 100 shares of PSX. It had gotten to an all-time high, and that's when Jerry said, you're going to sell those shares, right? Let's go ahead and write that out of the money covered call, and let's do it. I did it, and I'll tell you what, it's probably been 500 trades since that very first trade, and I absolutely love it. Now, some of you may or may not know my story. 3 years ago, as Jerry was giving me that mentorship, and he was talking to me about all the trades, I went up on YouTube, and I started looking for that very specific trade, and I couldn't find it. But then I started doing the trades, and it dawned on me, I'm doing the trades for which I was searching for on YouTube and Google. So I put on the microphone, and I did my very first video. Now look, I never thought in my wildest imagination that I would have anybody subscribe to my channel. Well, that has turned into a community that actually looks forward to seeing my videos, hearing my story, because they actually learn something. Now look, let's go ahead and get to those 3 trades I promised you. We're going to talk about a very short weekly Microsoft covered call I wrote, 3 days in fact, an Adobe trade for which I'm making 8% if my shares are taken away. And we're going to talk a little bit of volatility here and how I use support lines to cherry pick some cash secure profits. Now, before we get going, if this is the first time you've ever been to my channel, I need you to subscribe to my channel. If you like this video today, I need you to bang that like button, because it lets me know you like what I'm doing. Now look, if you've been with me for the past year, you know last year my goal was to make $50,000 writing covered calls and selling cash secure puts. Well, I achieved that, and I'll tell you what, didn't do much heavy lifting, and I surpassed it by $5,500. Now, the year before, my goal was simple. I wanted to make $1,200 a month, right? I'm in retirement. I need to make a little bit of money to supplement my income. Let's make $1,200 a month. Well, as you can see, I blew that number away. And this first number right here was 6 months worth of trading. That was my very first year that I decided to do this strategy where I would write covered calls and sell cash secure puts on multiple stocks, doing it multiple times. One of the things that you'll find with me is I'm rapid fire guy. I have this little swing trade, day trade mentality, but I use the very conservative strategy of writing covered calls and selling cash secure puts. And I combine the two, and when we do that, one, it excites me, it's fun for me. I'm able to write covered calls, let the trade play out, and if the stock were to fall, buy that option back, we look to do it again. I do this multiple times. Now, it's not that complicated. You know, everybody associates a guy that trades a lot with let's say, being a professional or a day trader or something a little more complicated than really what it is. It's not. I buy a stock, I give somebody the right to buy my shares at a higher price, I get paid, and then during the duration of that trade, if it falls, I might buy it back and I'll do it again. If it goes higher, I might buy it back and write write the next higher option, or I'll let it go, depending where the numbers lay. So for me, this is fun, keeps me motivated. I'll tell you what, I've had more success with this strategy than any stock market strategy. So what I want to let you in on this year is this. This year's goal is going to be $55,000. Jerry wanted $60,000, but look, if I could get to $50,000 again this year, I am knocking it down, right? I would like to do $55,000 this year, basically doing the same strategy, but what we're going to do this year is a little different. A lot of this channel is us talking about covered calls and cash secure puts, but it's really a wealth mentality because this channel was started because I wanted to see if I can do this in retirement, right? The selling premium strategy in retirement to supplement my income. Well, if I'm in retirement, how cool would it be to be collecting monthly checks from closed-end funds or big dividend players? Well, I've been doing that over the past year. Last year, I bought a couple thousand shares of my favorite closed-end funds, and I just let it roll. I drip invest, so I get the dividend, and I buy more shares. Well, that's what I'm going to do here. This year, I'm going to take X amount, probably $1,000 a month, again, God willing, and I'm just going to buy some great closed-end funds that pay $1 or $2 a year. Look, you have to know about closed-end funds, right? You have to understand that closed-end funds trade like a stock, but they are not a company. They don't have earnings, so on and so forth. So closed-end funds can be risky, but for the most part, closed-end funds are used by fund managers and stockbrokers or wealth managers to generate that monthly income for those retirees, and that's what I do. And that's what I'm going to do this year. Let's make $55,000 on the top end, see if I can do that, and let's take $1,000 a month and buy some great closed-end funds, generating about $100 or more in monthly dividend income. You can see this closed-end fund dashboard if you go to the CTP dashboard. It's in there. There's a free closed-end fund dashboard that I just actually updated. So let's talk about this. So the setup is simple. I own Microsoft. I have owned Microsoft shares for well over a year. And quite frankly, I'm now in a very profitable position on Microsoft. And if you remember last year, I wrote 25 weekly covered calls on Microsoft and collected all 4 dividends. Microsoft's one of those great stocks for me. I know the range. I play it. I feel comfortable. It has huge volume, and you know how we love volume when we're writing covered call. I'm in a spot now where I'd like to sell my Microsoft shares. I know that sounds crazy, right? But I have other ideas, and I want to use that Microsoft money for some other stocks. I want to get a little more diversified. So in this trade, here's how it played out. Microsoft was trading at about 104x. So if I can get 40 cents for a 3-day trade on my shares, that would give me about a 1.8% cash on cash profit. With the premium I get paid, 42 cents per share, for giving somebody the right to take my shares away from me at 106. That stock moved from 104.50 to 106. I get paid. I get that money. I get 106. Well, you combine the two, the stock movement and the premium, and that's your 1.8% move. This is a 3-day trade, and if I have my shares taken away, they're going to pay me 106. I'm going to be able to use that cash and buy another stock or multiple stocks and do this same strategy on those. Now, the time frame might be a week or 2 weeks or 30 days, but the concept is the same. We are going to buy our shares. We're going to give somebody the right to take our shares higher. We're going to buy our shares, and we're going to give somebody the right to take our shares away from us. Now, usually you're selling that out of the money strike, so you get that little stock appreciation. But hey, you can write an in the money covered call, meaning somebody will take your shares cheaper. Hey, if the numbers work out and you collect that cash on cash percentage that makes it worthwhile, then do it. Sometimes people use in the money covered calls because they get that true downside protection if the stock market were to fall. Or you could sell that at the money where you get that nice juicy premium. But hey, look, at 104.50, if Microsoft goes higher, you will have your shares taken away. But you made that cash on cash premium, no stock appreciation. On an out of the money covered call like I wrote on this, I'm going to collect that move from 104.50 to 106 plus the 40 cents per share. That's going to be a $1,500 crumb. And that's what I do here. I look for little crumbs, add them up, and then we're talking real money. So in this case, a 42-cent premium for this 3-day trade. Some people say, man, that doesn't even make it worth it. Not me. I love crumbs. And in this case, that's a $1,500 crumb. And if my shares were to be taken away, I'm going to pocket that and we're going to look to move on. And that's exactly what happened. I actually didn't think Microsoft was going to finish above 106 because I'm looking at the chart here, man. And for me, I'm thinking, man, we might get a little bit of a sell-off here in the market. We've had a phenomenal run just in the past week or so. And I'm thinking by Friday, they might take a little profits. Well, they didn't. Microsoft goes to 107x and my shares are taken away away at 106. Now, I know a lot of you newbies might be saying, man, you gave up $1.80 on that trade if you'd have just kept your shares. See, what you need to understand with me is I use these Microsoft shares to write covered calls and collect the premiums. That's what I do. So if I collect 1.8% on this trade and Microsoft goes higher, I do not do the coulda, woulda, shoulda. It is what it is. I take it, we move on. How many times have you sat back and thought what you coulda had? And then ultimately you find that if you don't have a strategy, you don't stick with the strategy, guess what? You end up losing money. Ask all those people that bought NVIDIA at, let's say, 200, it went to 270 and they're yucking it up, right? NVIDIA fell all the way to 139. I held NVIDIA at 200, writing covered calls all the way up, knocking down the crumbs, and I got rid of my shares much higher than what I bought it at. Now, with NVIDIA down to about 150x, I can get back into NVIDIA and do it again. Look, it's a strategy, it's an investment strategy, and whether you like it or not doesn't matter. Learn that strategy, own that strategy, and be great at that strategy. And that's what I do with writing covered calls and selling cash secure puts. It works for me. So in this case, my shares were taken away. Microsoft seems to be hovering at that 107x. We'll have to see where the market goes. You know, Microsoft has gotten as high as 115, so it could go back to 115 or it could find itself back to 100. Hey, doesn't matter. I move on. That's a win, and that's a juicy crumb. So for a lot of you that are new to this strategy, you're probably thinking, man, this is too easy. I buy some shares, I write the out of the money covered call, giving somebody the right but not the obligation to buy my shares higher. I give them a time frame to make that decision and they pay me a premium. Man, this is too good to be true. Well, it's not. Writing covered calls is the oldest option strategy on Wall Street. And let me tell you this, when you invest your money, usually most people's exposure in the stock market is in their 401k, their IRA, right? They don't really trade, right? They're in there, they got their funds. The reality is on the backside, the companies that manage our money that's in those accounts, they will buy a stock and then they have another department that will write a covered call against that stock. Look, it is the oldest strategy on Wall Street and it is profitable. So you really want to learn this strategy. If anything, use it as a tool in your toolkit because you could also use these strategies for some protection on the downside. Remember I talked about that in the money covered call? A lot of times people will do that. They'll have some gains in the stock and they think the market's going to fall. They'll write a deep in the money covered call, meaning they'll give somebody their shares lower. They get paid a juicy premium for that, giving them that 1-for-1 downside protection. Now, let's talk about Adobe real quick. I'm going to use Adobe for both my 8% 30-day trade and my cash secure put cash printing machine volatility trade. Now, for you that have been with me over the past year, you know I like Adobe. Adobe fits my risk profile, right? It will move in chunks of 20 points daily on very volatile market. Well, for me, I look at that as opportunity because for me, Adobe is one of those great stocks that I feel comfortable owning. Remember, that's a golden rule of cover call writing and cash secure put selling because you own the shares or you are going to be stuck owning the shares. Gotta want to own that stock. Well, in this case, let me cut to the chase. I bought Adobe before the December crash and I thought it was basing here at about 235. So at 235, I stuck it in for a couple hundred shares. And I'll tell you what, I was going to write some covered calls. Then Adobe takes a downward fall and just like the rest of the market. And man, I'm stuck holding the bag, right? Well, I want to own 300 shares. So instead of buying 300 shares down here, I end up writing a cash secured put, a 235 cash secured put. And when it falls down below 235, look, I thought I was going to be holding Adobe at 235 when the stock's trading at 200. Well, I got paid $11 for that option. Now, it's a 30-day trade. So as Adobe starts to head higher with the rest of the market, it gets above 235. And in fact, it gets to 242. Well, that option I got paid $11 for gets down to $3. So what I do is I pay $3 to take the obligation of me buying somebody's shares at 235 off the board. So now I keep the difference. See, I collected $11. I paid $3 to buy back that obligation. I keep the difference. And my money, which was secured, right? My money secured for that person that could assign me their shares at 235, it becomes free now. So what do? I buy some more shares. Now, as Adobe's heading higher, the rest of the market's heading higher, Adobe gets to 142x. And I'm feeling it. We're into the new year, haven't made many trades. It's time to make a trade. I write a 250 out of the money covered call, getting $5. Now, if you do the math on that, that is about 8% cash on cash for that 30-day move. Remember, I get $250 for my shares. If Adobe finishes the 30 days above $250, somebody will take my shares. I got $5 for that, right? Giving them the right to do it. So that's a total of $255 in profit. Remember, I paid $235 for those shares. So when you deduct that, that's a 20-point gain. That 20-point gain equals about 8% for the time frame I held the stock. Now, factor in that $800 I made on that cash secured put. This trade turns out to be $4,800 in a very short 2-month window. Look, this is what we do, and I love it because I feel comfortable with the strategy. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at this again. Now, let's take a look at this for that volatility trade. Now, for some of you, you know what I'm going to say, right? When a stock is falling, the market could be falling, a stock could be falling. If I'm playing a stock like Adobe, something I want to own, as it's falling, right, there's this great support line that gets created. Wall Street will buy it up at the support line. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that support because I'm thinking to myself, that's where Wall Street will buy. So when the stock falls, notice this line right here. When Adobe was going higher, every time the market were to sell off, Wall Street would buy it at the support line. So what I would do, I would pick a price below that support line and sell a cash secured put. So say, for example, Adobe's trading at 200. I would find that support line, right, where the dip is. I would find about a $10 lower strike price of, let's say, 190, and say I would get $2, $3, $4 for that. I'm thinking Adobe is going to go higher and I'll never be assigned the shares. And that's how I would cherry pick that volatility, that cash secure put profits. I would cherry pick those support lines. And it happened all year last year. Now, this year's a little different. Because of the volatility, we did not know where these support lines were. And I'll tell you what, it broke through every support line as Wall Street was just selling. Well, we get a little bit of a base and look at this. We're right back to moving higher again. And if Adobe starts to do this again, as the market gyrates through earnings and news, but for the most part stay stable, I'm going to find a strike price below it that I feel comfortable owning the shares. And when I sell that cash secured put, as the stock goes higher, I'll look to buy that option back. We pocket the money. We look to find the next opportunity to use volatility in our favor. I know this was quick and this was as rapid fire of a video as I do in my trading. The one thing I want to impress upon all the new folks is this. You can use this strategy in a very conservative, buy a great S&P type company that pays dividends. You can give somebody the right to take your shares away, collect a juicy premium where you're collecting 3 to 4% cash on cash monthly premium. And those gains can easily beat the stock market. You know, last year it was up 25% where the stock market was down 6%. Now, you need to learn the strategy. So you need your financial education. You need to go to YouTube and watch the videos, get comfortable with the strategy, open up that small ball account and do your very first trade. Hey, look, I always wish you the best in trading because it's all about having success. And that, at the end of the day, the most important thing for me. If you like this video today, bang that like button. And hey, let others know we're talking the good word of the covered call. Until next time, I hope all your covered calls are profitable.